Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. So glad I could be here with you guys today. All right. Before we get started, let me just take a brief moment just to give the administration team and everybody that had a part of me being here with you guys today. Like that in itself, that meant the world to me because they didn't have to allow me this opportunity, but yet they did. Right. With my presentations, usually they're interactive and we're engaged with one another, right? So my goal or my plan for today is that I could get you guys to interact and engage with me because I would much rather have a dialogue, meaning you guys talking to me and I talk back, instead of a monologue with just me doing all the talking. To me, that's just pretty boring, right? Secondly, I need a co-host. But what my co-host is, let me explain that to you real quick. My co-host is going to be one individual that's going to be paying attention throughout the entire presentation. And there's going to come a time where I have to call on my co-host to drive a point home. And that individual, they're going to stand up or sit down, whichever one they feel the most comfortable doing, and they'll be able to give the answer that I'm looking for, right? So the way I pick my co-host is I ask you guys to volunteer for me, and the person that I see first raise their hand, that's usually the person that I call. So let's take a quick second, let's regather, regroup, and and let's raise our hands if you would like to participate. And I'm gonna try my best to watch everybody, and I'm gonna call the first person that I see. And if I don't call on you, man, charge it to my head and not my heart. All right. So, do I have any volunteers for my co-host? Whoo! It's a lot of hands, a lot of hands, a lot of hands. I think I saw you right here though. Could you stand up for me, please? Yes, yes, you. What's your name? Jacob. How you doing today, Mr. Jacob? Great, 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 great. Hey, I'm gonna place a big responsibility on you. I hope you can handle it. Okay, okay, great, great. Now you can have a seat. If you guys don't take anything out of what I say today, I want you guys to understand life wants you to take action. Life rewards you for taking action. Life doesn't care about your circumstances. It doesn't care about the background you come from. It doesn't care about how much money you have. Only thing life is concerned about is, are you going to take action right now? Life doesn't want you to take action tomorrow. Life wants you to take action today. And I want you guys to take that home with you once you leave here, right? Mental health is the most undiagnosable thing there is in the world, right? I'll give you an example. If a person is in a car accident, they're more than likely going to go to a hospital. Person has a cavity, a root canal, or need their wisdom tooth pulled, more than likely they'll go to the dentist. If a person has a slip disc in their back and it hurts them to walk, they would more times than not, they would go and see a chiropractor. But where does the person go that didn't eat dinner last night and they come to school the next day and the teacher wants to run the Pythagorean theorem down their throat, but the only thing they can focus on is, man, I didn't have a meal, but my teacher wants to sit here and teach me, and she's not even concerned about what I ate last night or the fact that why I'm not engaged in what she's talking about. Or where do you go, or what do you do when the dynamic says you're supposed to have a mother and a father, but let's just say for the sake of argument, your dad left you when you was a kid, and your mom, she had to pick up the slack, so she couldn't be there to support you emotionally like she should have because she was making ends meet so you could always get what you needed, but you were neglected emotionally. Like, what do you do? What do you do when every single day, because of the environment that you come from, it's either you have to fight or you have to run every single day? Like, what do? How does that make sense? You know what? I'll tell you. See, because mental health has such a big stigma around it. Like people don't even talk about those things. They don't even address those situations. What usually tends to happen is they suppress all of their emotions, they suppress all of their feelings, and when things just go in overload and overdrive, like things get really really chaotic and crazy, and the people that looks at the person that the things are happening to, they look like, wow, man, what happened? What made them snap? Right? But it's the stigma, and with stigma it comes in three S's, right? So the very first S with stigma is shame. Like who wants to be shamed? Like that's a very bad feeling. And you know what shame produces? Shame produces silence. So when the young man that has to run every day or he has to fight every day, when he feels shame, and instead of talking to somebody, he keeps it in. He follows the next step. That's silence, right? And what follows silence is self-destructive behaviors. So now you have these teenagers and kids, you see them smoking and you see them drinking and you see them cutting up in class, right? Those are self-destructive behaviors. And the only reason that they're doing these things is because they have no other outlet or no other avenue to release what they feel. So they self-destruct. They hurt themselves from the inside and it reflects on the outside what they feel, right? See, in life, we don't always get to choose the cards that we're dealt. But what matters is how we play those cards. And a lot of times, we're not taught how to play our hand. So that's why you see the shame, silence, and at the end, the self-destructive behaviors doing what they do to people because no one never taught them. But you see, it's up to us. It's up to you guys. Like it's up to everybody in this room to make a conscious decision to say, how do we change this stigma? It's up to us to say, we're ready to do everything we need to change that stigma, because one day that could be us. See, one day that individual that I was describing, right? Granted, some of the circumstances may be different for each and every last one of you guys, but granted, that individual could be you guys, right? See, I didn't get to choose the hand that I was dealt in life. I didn't know that I was going to grow up and my mom was going to have to carry the load because my dad decided when I was 5 years old, he didn't want no part of us no more. See, I didn't get to choose that. I didn't know how my life was going to turn out based off all of those situations, right? I didn't know that at a certain age I was going to start feeling the void on the inside of me saying, why my dad didn't want me. Think about that. We talking about a little kid. We talking about little Jarvis. 7, 8, 9, 10. He's wondering, like, dang, why all of my people around me, they don't got no dad? Like, is this normal? Like we normalize it because everybody around me that I knew, they grew up without their dad, right? You know what? It's crazy. If you had a dad, I thought something was wrong with you, because I'm like, most people that I know, they don't have a dad. Shame, silence, self-destructive behaviors. Like it doesn't take long for it to catch up with you. See, you may sit here and think that, well, you know what? Let me just keep it on the inside. Let me not say nothing. Let me figure it out myself. Because as teenagers, that's the hardest thing about it. See, we want to figure everything out for ourselves. We don't want to be seen as weak. See, weak is almost equivalent to being shamed, right? Because you look at it like, well, yeah, I'm growing up. I don't need this person right here. This person doesn't need to be helping me. But see, it doesn't roll like that. It's actually seen as a sign of strength to ask an individual for help when you're going through trying times. But like I say, I get it. The stigma around of what's going on, it just makes us like, oh, yeah, he's weak. He feels shame and the silence. And remember what I told you, self-destructive behavior, man. The very first time I smoked weed, I was 12 years old, right? And for the longest periods of time, I thought it was peer pressure attacking my character or attacking who I was. But as I started to smoke and I smoked and I smoked, I was noticing it was my way of escaping my reality, because when I was high, I had an altered state of mind, and I couldn't feel the pain that was festering on the inside of me. I couldn't feel it. I was numb. And and you know what? I had a person that asked me one time, they said, Jarvis, what do you think about suicidal people or people that commit suicide? I said, simply put, man, they was crying for help and nobody heard them. So they just said, you know what, let me end all of it so no one has to see me in pain. Because because people hurt so much on the inside, they hurt. They'll go through drastic measures to stop the pain. Why do you think people cut themselves? People attempt suicide. People take medicine. People will sit up there in the car and close the garage or be in a closed setting and crank the car on, and a lot of times they die of carbon monoxide poison, right? Or they go through other drastic measures and they do what I did. See, what I did, it was very crazy to me at the time, right? I wanted to seek validation from other older guys that was in my life. Like every time somebody older than me came around, I was always trying to impress them, right? I was overcompensating in all these other areas because I felt the void because my dad left and I didn't feel whole anymore. So I said, you know what? You need to do the only thing there that you can possibly do to almost feel whole. And every time my big brother, right? Blind leading the blind, hurt leading the hurt. Me not knowing, me not thinking, he was feeling the same pain that I was feeling. But see, the only difference is he acted out in a different way than I did. So instead of seeking validation, right, he started doing other things like getting kicked out of school at the age in the 6th grade, right? He started doing other things like carrying guns on the school bus with him, right? He started doing other things like committing crimes, robbing. He was only 13, 14. And so that's what I was attracted to. I wanted him to, I wanted to seek him out. But see, that's the thing, right? You can't seek validation through people. You have to validate yourself. And see, I found out the hard way. Walked in on a conversation my brother was talking one day. I was in the 11th grade of high school. And I walked in on a conversation that said you can make $10,000 in 10 seconds. The very first thing I did before I asked any questions, I said I'm in. Because I knew if I made that move and I committed to something that drastic, I knew that the love, the acceptance that I had been fighting for so long and so hard to get, it would finally be here. I would finally be able to hold it in my hand and say, yes, I don't have to seek attention anymore. It's over with. See, that was the thought process of a person whose mental health was damaged. That was the thought process of a person that didn't even love himself. Because the only thing that I could think about was validation through other people. Being accepted. Now, don't get it twisted. Acceptance is something that we all seek from our peers. But you don't self-destruct to be accepted by other people. And that was a critical moment in my life. And when when it was time to when it came time to commit that crime, when it was come time to rob them that Italian restaurant, everything on the inside of me said, don't do it. Everything said, don't do it. I was scared. I was afraid. But I just knew that if I did it, I would be seen in another light by my brother. And I did it. Even got away for 7 days. For 7 whole days. Committed a crime. Cool. Got a lot of money. But it was short-lived. And so I started to question myself, like, was it worth it? Was it worth it? Was the money you got worth going to jail? And I came up with it and I knew it wasn't worth it. But see, when you was going through the type of pain that I was going through, and the only outlets you knew was self-destructing and seeking out others' validations, those were the type of things you did. I didn't love myself. I didn't know how to love myself. And so when I got in front of that judge, and that judge looked at me and told me to stand up, he told me, "We hereby sentence you, Jarvis Jones, for 15 years for simple armed robbery." My world shattered. The worst thing that could possibly happen to a hurt person is to hurt them even more. See, it's in our most vulnerable moments where we need people to hug us, where we need people to tell us that, hey, you are enough. It's in those moments that we need to be told that everything is going to be okay. But when you add gasoline to a fire that's already erupted, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to be a bigger mess than it already was, right? So I need you guys to ask yourself, like, what's going on in your life? How do you feel about certain things? Like, are the cards that were dealt to you in your favor? Are they not in your favor? And if it's not in your favor, what are you going to do to fix that situation? How do you check your mental health? Right? I need you to check it every single day. It's dope. It's done on purpose every day. Right? I don't want you guys to be ashamed anymore. I don't want you to stay silent. I don't want you to self-destruct. I want you to be able to just face your problems head on, no matter how bad it hurts. I need you to be able to look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself you don't need validation and you are enough. You are enough. And when you become aware of all these things, like life tends to make a drastic shift for you. Life shifts and you don't even know it shifts. And then all of a sudden people will start telling you it shifts and you be like, oh man, you right. I don't do this anymore. I don't do this anymore. But I need you to do it every single day. Like no matter what type of background you come from, no matter if you're in a one-parent household or a two-parent household, no matter if people have expectations for you or they don't have expectations for you, I need you to check on your mental health every single day. It's done on purpose. But the only way to do that is you have to have a solid foundation, right? So when I went to prison, right, I had to rebuild my foundation from scratch. So my foundation, I didn't know how to love. I didn't love myself. I thought in order to be accepted, I had to make people like me. I thought in order to be cool, I had to do things that I didn't want to do just so a person or an individual could get a good laugh, a good time, a show. But I learned that in the midst of recreating and building my foundation from ground up, there was some things that I had to do on the inside, and I had to ask myself a lot of questions, and I had to go through the pain that I was feeling, and I just had to be real with myself and just admit that I was hurting. See, I was aware of all the bad that I was doing, but I had to admit to myself and accept that, hey, you hurt. You need to understand that you need to acknowledge the role that you played in this, right? Because all too often we forget that everybody in every situation, there's a role that we play in it. Whether we willing to admit it or not, we all play a role in what goes on in our lives. And when I got in that prison, I had to admit to myself the role that I played. And the role that I played was I was silent. Because shame had got me, I was silent. And I self-destructed. And I had to admit that to myself. I just had to start like, man, you don't have to you don't have to fit in with a crowd. Like you are enough. As hard as it may seem, right? As hard as this may be to believe, you are a very cool person. So you have to rebuild yourself and you start with love. And see, when you start with love, your foundation is gonna be your foundation gonna be impenetrable. Right? Nobody can come to your foundation. Nobody can pick at you. Like these little small, minute things not gonna bother you anymore. And you'll be able to add on top of the love that you already have. Then you start to value yourself. You treat yourself differently. You don't you don't come down and you don't be overly critical of yourself. You don't ask yourself, am I worthy anymore? You start to feel that you're worthy. And that's what happened. And that's when a shift came in my life. See, I understood that insanity was doing the same thing and expecting different results. And I knew that before I came to prison that I was a hurt, broken individual. And I knew that I didn't want to go home hurt and broken because there was always that possibility that I would wind up doing hurt and broken people stuff. And so I had to heal. And in the process of me healing, I learned something about myself that I never knew before. See, I learned that I was awesome. And see, I didn't know that at first. And each and every last one of you guys possess that same characteristic. You guys are awesome. You guys are lawyers, doctors, judges, pediatricians, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. You guys are amazing and you rock. But see, the problem is you guys probably don't know that you're amazing. And when you don't know that you're amazing, you will fall for anything anybody will tell you. And I know there's a lot of things that we go through as kids. And I need you guys to take action. Right? It don't matter what happened to you. Right? I need you to take action. Accept the role that you played. And when you accept that role, you build your foundation all over from scratch. You don't allow people to tell you what you can and can't be. You determine what you can and can't be. It's all in your hand. It's in your court. Now let me pause just for a quick second, man. I was amped. I was up there. Now let me call on my man. Him. But quick shot. How many of you guys were only paying attention because you wanted to see me call on Mr. Jake? And be honest with me, please. Whoo, it's a lot of hands. Those are a lot of hands. Wow. But you know what's the amazing part about me telling y'all in the beginning that I needed a co-host and that I was gonna call on them to drive the point home? I'm finna drive the point home now. Everything that I told you guys, from realizing that you had shame or realizing the stigma that was over you, the stigma about mental health and the shame that went with it and the silence and the self-destructive behavior, like everything that I told you requires focus. And over a third of you guys were locked in simply because you wanted to see what I had to say. Think about that. You locked in because you wanted to see what I had to say. And the other 2/3, guess what? They were focused because they wanted to see what Mr. Jacob was gonna have to do. But they were focused. And being focused is the key to everything. So there's no such thing as what you can and can't do. There's only how much focus am I willing to give. All right? And when you start to shift your focus, you start to do different things. And when I shifted my focus, I started to walk in my greatness. See, I was always a smart kid, and I knew that I was smart, but I told you I was dealing with a lot of things, with the shame and the silence and the self-destructive behavior. Like I just completely threw school out the window. It didn't even matter to me what school was because at that point I was only at school to play sports, get my little attention and go home. And as a result, I made every grade available. That's A, B, C, D, F, right? Those were the choices that I made because I lost focus. But when I regained my focus and I went down there and I said and I took that GED, I was in the front of the class. I'm not being tricked out of my spot. I don't want nobody to trick y'all out y'all spot no more. I want you to take school serious, but I want you to take your mental health serious too. Because you don't have to worry about a CD or F when you check that mental health, and instead of being in that classroom and now you're ashamed to raise your hand and you stay silent and you start and then you get the test and now you self-destruct and got an F. So now you see how stigma goes, right? Now you can operate in a total different lens. And that's what I want for you. That's what I want for you guys. But you guys have to want that for yourself. And I guarantee you'll get the same results, if not better. Right? I went in prison and I got my GED in 3 months. That's 90 days. And I jackballed in school for 12, well not 12 years, for at least 5 years. I jackballed in school. From the grade of 6 to 11, I jackballed, meaning I didn't really care what I was doing. But it took going to prison to make me realize what situation I was in. And I don't want anything drastic to happen to you guys, because in my situation, I was lucky. A lot of people don't get that same opportunity that I got. A lot of people meet their destiny. A lot of people are in the graveyard right now. A lot of people are in the grave right now. And I guarantee you, if they had the chance to do it all over again, they wouldn't let a stigma ruin them in the manners in which it did. A lot of them. And so I got that GED in 90 days, and I knew something. I said, man, you know what? Man, you can dream. You can dream big. Like, my mom didn't go to college. My dad didn't go to college. But I knew at that point I was on a roll. I said, you know what? If I can get a GED in 90 days, I said, I can go to college. And I could be successful in college. I just knew it. Anything is possible when you shift that focus. And so I took my ACT. And because I wasn't focused like I should, I didn't get the results that I wanted. So don't get it twisted, right? I may sit up here in front of you guys and tell you to focus, but don't get it twisted like I'll always be focused. Because there'll be some times the things in life will shift your focus, and now you have an imbalance. And I had an imbalance twice. But let me tell you something. It's never about how you start. It's always about how you finish. And see, I kept that same mindset and I kept that same attitude. Like, it don't matter if I got kicked out of high school. It don't matter that I went to prison at the age of 17. It don't matter that I'll be a convicted felon. It doesn't matter that the stats said I had a 66.7% chance of going to prison within my first 5 years being home. Right? It didn't matter. It's never about how you start. And so when I got out of prison, the first thing I did, I enrolled in college. I never thought I'd be a college guy. Nobody never told me about college. Never. But I was able to get out and I was able to go to college. Right? And so I'm telling you guys here right now today, it's not about how you start the race. It's always about how you finish. The way you finish the race would destroy everything that was behind the race. Right? It'll destroy everything. Everything in your way, it'll be destroyed. And I finished the race. And I went to Hines Community College. got my associates in 2 years, went on to Jackson State and got my bachelor's, graduated, and now in 8 months, I'll get my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. So don't tell me it can't be done. Don't tell me it's hard, because the only thing is hard is finding a way to shift your focus and understanding that your mental health is dope, is done on purpose every day, and anything that you think you can do. So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it's hard. I can't do this. The background I came from, none of that even matters anymore. From this day forward, I need you guys to make your life count. Take action, eradicate that stigma so we can get rid of the shame, the silence, and the self-destructive behavior. And I need you guys to shift that focus, and you'll walk out on top. I'm Jay Jones Speaks. That's my time. Thank you.